Welcome back to episode 2, and I got some good news for you guys. We got a name.
Yeah.
The Modern Brown Men.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And so we got a podcast here, and if you've been around with us, you've heard the first podcast. You've heard what we're kind of about. We're going to be talking about our culture, entrepreneurship, our religion, as well as things affecting men's health, men's mentality, sports. We're going to dig into it, man. And we're going to get into some deeper conversations as we get through the various podcasts. And we're looking forward to it. And I hope you're ready to hear it. So today's conversation, we're going to start with, carrying the culture. And what does that mean? So, I think a big piece of it for me from carrying the culture really is talking about how do we take some of the stuff that our parents learned back when they were back in India and how are we utilizing it in our everyday life? How is it impactful for us? How do we actually carry that forward into the next generation? And how much do we carry on, right? Like if I think about it personally from my side, I probably have 30 to 40% of the knowledge that my dad did. Like he could have recited things off the top of his head, if it comes from the Granth Sahib and any of these stories and like Maharaj Ranjit Singh and like a lot of these like cultural stories, not just faith-based, but and like what does some of the special holidays, what do they mean to us, right? What are the meanings behind them? And so I think for our generation, it's more of an effort. So you got to do the Googles, man. You got to Google stuff. I Google everything, man, because sometimes you get it wrong, and it's important to have that information. But what does it mean to you? What does carrying culture mean to you?
So I think like for me, the carrying the culture aspect comes from me growing up back home. So I grew up like obviously as everybody knows, I grew up in India. So cultural pretty much like was the thing we lived by. What it represented us in communities. So when I moved here, you see how the onus goes away from ourselves, but we deflect blame on our parents in a sense. They're forcing it on us. But it's not, we can't look at it from that sense. We gotta have an understanding that this is who we are. This is our identity. And if we don't take the onus upon ourselves, who will?
So do you think because we're here in Canada that maybe we kind of and the terminology is a crappy terminology for me to use, but like, do we whitewash some of our culture because we want to be integrated? Do you think that's kind of happening as well?
To a certain extent, I want to say, like, I feel like a lot of kids have that stigma of fitting in, being judged, rightfully so. Representing some, especially if kids out there that have a Judah or they have a Pugs and stuff. You do see stories coming out of like, especially like England or even Canada, being picked on. Getting bullied. Guess what? So when you see those stories, it strays you away from it. We're like, man, I don't want to go through that. But
and on that topic, I can't relate to it. And we were gonna use that was going to be one of our names for our podcast. It was going to be the 2 Pugs and Paul, but we didn't go that way. But like for 2 guys that did, your culture was blatantly on your head, and it was there, and it was people were seeing it. Do you think that affected some of your upbringing?
No, I mean for Mark, I think he was more integrated in the community here compared to me, so he could speak more into like growing up here more like than I could. So it'd be interesting to hear his point of view because he actually grew up here and everything. So I think it'd be a different understanding how he went about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I would say it was tough, especially when back then there was not much of an understanding of what a religion was, especially those who were not familiar with it. And of course, there was also you're always trying to fit in because you look different, right? And I think that goes for any religion, any culture. If you have some sort of, that you're wearing that's different, but there was always this insecurity, right? Like, why do I look like different from everyone else? Like, I have to keep this because I have to, because it's pressure from my parents. And then you have this confusion of like, okay, well, like how do I balance between the two? So it was tough. So
and I can't relate, right? Because I didn't grow up that way. I grew up at a regular haircut like everybody else, and so I can't relate to that. But what I do know, and I understand it from what my dad helped me understand, was that there's a purpose to it, right? The purpose behind looking different is that so you can't, you have to, as a Sikh person of belief and faith, when you see some injustice happening, when you see somebody being bullied or someone being pushed around or something happening wrong that you don't believe is right,
Yup.
you're supposed to stand up
Stand
for
up,
that. That's the
100%.
whole purpose behind the Sikh identity.
Yeah, that's what Sikh identity is. If
Yeah.
you look at it, like what does it mean? Like ek onkar, like we're all one,
Yeah.
right? The main underlining understanding of Sikhism is what? The act of, self-service,
Yeah.
discipline, treating everybody as equal, right? So when I do see, kids out there that do get deterred from the fact that, as Muk said, being pressured or being judged, I'm like, don't even take that. I know it's hard, but take pride in what this represents. Take pride, because our ancestors, our gurus, everybody fought for us to have this on our heads, to wear not only here, but here. Like, people that might not even have bugs, they might understand what it means because they don't understand the meaning. It touches them. So not necessarily just because you have this, that means, the full understanding of, like, you don't gotta have this to understand what carrying a culture means.
There is a level of courage that it takes to be different every
100%.
day,
100%.
day in, day out. You don't get to pick and choose which day you're gonna wear it, right? You know what I mean?
No.
Like it's
It's a discipline every single day.
100%. So I think a part of that is a character building thing.
Yep,
right?
I agree.
Like people that don't have bugs, like it's still Sikh men, like you still have a choice to carry some of the the values of Sikhi and to stand up for it. But when you're representing it every day physically in an embodiment of it, you have no choice.
Yeah, that's true. And like one thing I would like to figure out from you is, so you grew up like your friends. Did you ever looked at any person that had a bug or juda, be like, because a lot of people do stray away from it in our own culture. Like, when they resent it almost, they're like, oh, he has a bug. Or so they might not even include him in that group setting or whatever it is, just outcast him in a sense.
There wasn't when I was growing up, man. We were born in the 80s, man. There was when we were at school, there was not many of you. There was 10 or 12 brown people.
Okay, that's
school, right? So we stuck together.
Yeah.
And if you had, we'd always be like, Gutti. If you had a Gutti, Gutti kid was a part of our group, man. Yeah, he's hanging with us. Come on in, man. But we were I grew up in a very multicultural group of friends. Like most of my best friend was Filipino. My kids growing up with me, most of my friends were Chinese.
Yeah.
My other best friend was Hindu Punjabi. And my other best friend was Apna Jat Sikh Banda, right?
Yeah.
And there was to be honest with you, maybe there was one or two kids that had a gutti, or we're not Amrit Chak fully, but they had a gutti, right?
Yeah.
And it was we were inclusive. We never picked on anybody. We were there was a beauty to it. We all looked out for each other. It was a different generation.
Yeah, it was.
It was
That's
different.
True.
We didn't there was one of my best friends was black.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of white guys in our group, and we hung out together and we just looked out for each other.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. And
don't get me wrong. I respect that.
Don't get me wrong. I got in plenty of fights. I got in plenty of issues. I thought it was because I had a big mouth. If I look back now, it's maybe because it had to do I was brown, but I just thought I had a big mouth, and that's why I got picked on. But that is what it is, right?
Yeah,
so
that's true. Unfortunately,
I didn't see it that way, right? And growing up as a kid, man, and I see my kid's 5 years old right now, and he does, he's got his hair's cut. He doesn't wear a bug, but he's got a fascination and love with it.
Yeah.
My dad wore a bug. My Taya wore a bug. My Taya was Amrit Chak. All my cousins, all my Taya's sons, before they moved from India and came to Canada, they all had bugs too.
That's
and so
true,
there was you look at all these old pictures, and he goes through the photo albums, and he's got this fascination. And I had the same upbringing. So I was a kid on Sunday at the Gurdwara, would get his dad to tie a bug.
Yeah.
And then I'd wear it for half the day, and then I'd be scratching, sticking my finger up there because it's so sweaty and
so
itchy.
sweaty.
Yeah, man. I've been it's so hard to wear.
Yeah.
But I had a fascination with it.
Yeah, I love to hear that though, because I feel like people should take that, it's something to represent. Take passion in what it represents. Even having it on your kid. One of my cousins down in BC, they asked me, they're like, can you tie a bug on my kid? And I'm just like, yes, I'd love to do that because, and that just, moments like those, it kind of brings everybody together. And, one thing I did like to say is I never had a path where some people say I never had a choice, which is okay. I grew up with this. My mom always tied a juda. Never understood it until later on, right?
Yeah.
My mom gave me an option. She's like, I turned 18. My mom's like, if you want to cut it now, right? Yeah. So I really had to do self-reflection. I'm like, okay, she gave me that choice if I wanted to do it. Then I'm like, no, this is who I am.
Yeah.
This is I look in the mirror, I see what I represent, and I want to carry it to the most, the highest value I can and represent it in the right way.
Yeah.
Carry it forward because at the end of the day, we are role models for the next generation to come.
So, and I'm glad to hear that from you because I struggle with that, right? So I got a kid who's always like, "Hey, man, I want to have a bug."
Oh, yeah.
But then I'm like, "You got to grow your hair. You can't cut it anymore, right?"
Yeah.
And so he's only 5. He doesn't understand that, and I struggle with it because I've seen it where I've had my cousin's kids. Like my cousin just got married in Toronto, and we tied bugs at his wedding, and my son loved it, but he had a judo like for pretty much up until he was like maybe 14, 15.
Yeah.
And he was born in Edmonton, and then he cut it off. And now, he's married and he just got married this past, back in July here. So just like a month ago. And life is fine. Like, and he continues, it's not a part of his identity anymore.
Yeah.
But so but I don't know if that's the right path. Is it the right path to allow him to have it and then cut it off? Or is it to not and then allow them to make a decision at 10, 12, 14 and say, hey, is this something you want to commit to for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
And it as a parent, man, it's confusing.
It's tough.
Super tough.
It's very tough. But one thing I'll just say, like to kind of touch up the last thing on here, I think like carrying the culture is literally up to our generation that we're growing right now. If we get away from, this narrative, I'm not saying, I see this a lot. I want to live my life. I want to live your life, but understand what this means. If we don't have the ability to carry forward our culture, who will? We will slowly die away. Nobody will know. Is that what we really want in the future?
No. And honestly, to be honest with you, I think our culture and our faith, it's a beautiful thing, right? Like I remember as a kid, I never wanted to be the kid that's taking the box of like dal and roti to school.
100%.
But guess what? Now, if you go to work with that, you're the coolest person.
Hey, can I get some of that?
Hey, can I get some of that?
Yeah.
So
100%.
So somewhere along the way, maybe not our faith, but maybe our culture or food or something, we grew up. The culture and faith grew up. People around us grew up. Canadians grew up. And North Americans have grown up.
Oh, that's fair.
So things have changed. So now it is more acceptable to do some of these things. So because culture doesn't necessarily always have to be faith or holidays or things that we need, like, or your like physical identity. It can also institute and I talk about food because I love to cook. So food is very much a cultural thing. Yeah. And you can embrace it because guess what? There is a bunch of Punjabi kids out there that don't eat roti, that don't eat dal, that don't know how to make a roti or make dal. Yeah. And
I don't know how to make a roti.
But like, you know how scary that is? So I can make dals and I can make sabjis and I can make.
More power to you, man.
I make a killer goat curry, man. I make a killer goat curry. But I can't make rotis, man, for the life of me, man. Well, they're not round. But like, I still have my mom. I still have my mother-in-law. Like it's beautiful that like if I'm having a goat curry party with the boys in the garage, there's jal and roti gets dropped off by my mom. It always gets dropped off. But she's getting older. What am I supposed to do when, I'm like in 15, 20 years, right? And she's not around.
That's a thought.
And like, I hope she lives forever, but like, and so now we're calling it all in from the restaurant, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like there's a part of our culture that is not just these other things. Part of it, it's the food. It's the identity.
Yeah, 100%.
And we're losing it. And it doesn't like if I'm sitting here and be like, oh, my wife has to learn how to make rotis. That's not the case. If anything, maybe I should learn how to make the rotis, man. Like she don't know how to learn. If she can't do it, I might as well.
Can't expect that now.
Yeah, but like that, and change our expectations because man, some of the and I was my buddies and my dad used to always make fun of me, man. This is one of the things my dad used to be like. He's like, you're gonna be the wife in the house, man, because you always do because I love to cook. But some of the best chefs in the world are Punjabi men.
100%.
Some of the best chefs in the world, some of the best restaurants.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that this kind of carries on to like the next thing we'll kind of discuss, which is kind of like going into the carrying the culture, but how certain thing in our society, in our culture or community impacts it. For example, like ego and jealousy and a support system, having that. And that kind of is integrated with that, carrying the culture forward. So I think it's just like, that ego also stems from, I think we've kind of touched on this previously before. Sometimes we don't want to see our own do good or better than you.
Do you want to know where that stems from?
I don't know. I don't know where that stems. I genuinely don't know.
You want to know where that starts? We've got a very competitive upbringing. That's the problem. Okay? True. And so, and it's not, I wouldn't associate to culture or faith or whatever it is, but somewhere along the dynamics, it's that warrior in us. It's that we are always pushing our children. We're always saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, you're gonna get a 90%. Oh, तुझे 10% कितने रह गया?"
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That's
They're
true.
like, "Oh, Timmy, he did better than you. Why did you do better than
100%.
Tim? And Timmy's your best friend. Why did you do better than you? Now you're gonna get a jutti, you're gonna get prepared because of Timmy."
100%.
And so guess what? You got a little bit of part of you is tinged.
Yup.
And growing up, man, one of my best friends, he was this amazing soccer star, just
Yeah.
amazing athlete. But guess what? He was also super smart. He would get like even my sister would help them, like their brother and sister would help them with like math and stuff, and they would do tuition. So they were like bright. And like here's my sister. She could be doing the same thing for me, but she wasn't. I wasn't asking for it. And they would always, he would get like the honor roll, and he would always get the awards for the best athlete. And my parents would go to these things, and I'd get honor roll, but I wouldn't get no athletic awards.
No chance.
No, I wasn't that all-star athlete, and
Yeah.
I wasn't. It was okay. I had 2 left feet.
Yeah.
I've been this height since I've been this tall since I was 10 years old. Which when I went back then, it was like, oh man, this guy's so tall. And my parents used to buy. I used to get size 13 shoes.
Yeah.
I wear size 10. I got size 13 because they're like, you're gonna grow into them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna grow into the 100.
But it didn't.
Never
And
happened.
it didn't happen. But a part of me, this is my best friend, and my parents would always constantly compare me to him,
Yeah.
and it would drive me nuts.
Yo.
Because it would suck, because I then just wanted to be more like him, or and I just couldn't understand why I wasn't good enough.
100%.
And it's a struggle. And I think
It
a lot of
is.
kids do that because they're like, hey, why am I not good enough for praise? And so then you get this ego, or you get this chip on your shoulder
Yo.
that creates this issue. And later in life, it's not easy to rub off those chips.
100%.
Once they're ingrained in you, it's
It
hard.
becomes a habit.
That's
Yeah.
the amount of self-reflection and therapy you got to go to
Yeah.
to get rid of those chips is a lot.
And to a certain extent, I do feel like you hold some sort of resentment as well. Because you know why? Like growing up, like, hey, my cousin, smartest person I know, man. He had honor rolls at U of A, engineer, like smartest kid.
Yeah.
And and I'm like, when he got honor rolls, I'm like, please. My parents already go, I'm like, God, no. Like, now they only gonna say, me like, why can't you like be him, this, that? That comparison kills the confidence of a kid.
Yeah.
Like, it's so bad. Like, I'm not saying have that, instill it in your kid, maybe in a different manner. You know, instill it in your kid, have that competitive fireness, that you know, what would you call it? That fierceness to go out there and do whatever you want. Like you can. But the thing is, like, it's hard when we have the support system around us.
Yeah.
We're just beat down by comparison from early age.
100%.
True.
And
True.
it's
100%.
and it deteriorates our ability to grow as a person. Now you question yourself.
There's a beauty to that competitive nature, and it's great when we take it to athletic events.
100%.
And
Hey.
it's great.
100%.
Let's crush it. Let's kill
Yeah.
it.
And you know,
But
It's never turned
you
off.
got to learn to turn it off.
yeah.
It's never turned off.
There's a beauty to having a community and being able to help each other. And I'll be honest with you, like as you grow up and get older, like I think one of the bigger things is that we've left the village. And so we don't have village elders for support. We don't have people we can go talk to about our problems or issues. And so that lack of support there. And if you go to your peers, you're like, oh man, what if this guy's gonna laugh at me?
100%.
Or what if he's gonna expose me for having this weakness? Or what if it's gonna be like, you know what I mean? Like there's so many you're so paranoid.
So
half the time. So
paranoid,
paranoid.
man.
You're always thinking that the next conversation you have is gonna be your demise because you said too much to somebody.
Yep.
But we shouldn't feel like that.
100%.
You should be able to openly have conversations. There's a beauty to like, if you ever look at it and you see men that go away to war and they always come back and they're like stressed out or they get PTSD and all this other things. There's a one thing that when they went away to war that they had that when they come back home, they don't. And it's brotherhood.
Yeah.
It's having that ability to have a conversation. When you're at the most difficult situations of your life, you will expose the most rawest person you are. You will talk about things that are uncomfortable. You will, in the fear of losing your life or in the fear of not making it home, you will have deeper conversations than you've ever had.
Yeah.
And why can't we have those conversations with our brothers here?
Yeah.
And we don't need to be in the battlefield.
Yeah.
But we don't we don't have those conversations. We don't sit and have a coffee. We might have that conversation after both love Crown Royal.
100%.
But
We're gonna
guess
conquer
what?
the world.
Guess what?
When you
Guess
joke.
what? Only one guy remembers that conversation.
100%.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
It's
And
true.
that, hey man, I'm
You're waiting on the conversation to be had.
I've been there. I've been in the car bar situation and sat there till 4 a.m. and it's been great. And I remember bits and pieces of it. And you remember all the puppies they're getting on the cheeks and stuff.
Yeah.
And like you're my bro. And they're beautiful. But the meaning behind them has so much more meaning when they're sober afternoon conversation that has meaning and an everlasting effect.
Yeah, it has something to stand on.
And you're willing to carry it forward.
100%. No, I agree. I mean, that support system kind of also like, as you said, it's like it stems from the whole cultural aspect too. It's just like the way the upbringing, how we are, what our parents been through, the trauma they carry, how they thought life was supposed to be upheld, like being strong, not showing emotions, not showing that weakness.
Yeah.
And, when you put all that together, it's like a ticking time bomb for the next generation where it builds up. Because now the generation around us, when it's other cultures, you see them growing in a different aspect where why is that culture like, hey, like you always had the comparison, but like, man, they can talk to the parents so easily. But like, man, like I can't even ask a question like without getting either of you. I feel like I'm scared. Like, why do we feel scared sometimes to even ask a parent a question? Like, and that's the scary part. That's where like, the childhood trauma and all that stuff stems from. And then,
100%.
so,
Dude, man, like, but like part of like that generation was they didn't know how to handle their like tough love, man. My dad was the first person that broke my nose. Well, actually, only person that broke my nose. But not because he was trying to punch me in the face. But like we had a rule at the dinner table: you had to speak Punjabi.
Yeah.
Growing up as a kid, that's why I can like when I get into a taxi cab nowadays, they're like, "Oh, so when did you come from India?" And I'm like, "I was born in Canada." But my Punjabi is really good. But so we had the rule, and I broke the rule, and I think I was maybe like 9 or 10 years old, and I got smacked in the back of the head, and my nose hit the corner of the table, and it. and instead of my mom being like, "Oh, my bachara," she was like, "Oh, roti." The roti was getting wrecked. But yeah, so we had that, like that's how they dealt with things. It was tough love, and I'm sure at that moment my dad probably felt bad because and it probably broke his heart that like here's this kid like and he was just trying to teach him a lesson and like or make sure that he follows the rules, and he didn't know how to deal with the situation. We're better at handling those things. We're better at expressing frustrations. And like even now, man, I'll catch myself. I got a 5-year-old kid, man. Like there's a day where I want to give him a chapered. And to be honest, like he's 5 now, and it's only happened once. He's only got a chapered once, and it was at Universal Studios, man. He just wasn't listening. There's ice cream everywhere, and I just
wanted every ride.
It's just driving me nuts. But it's just jumping out, man. But you shouldn't have to. You should be able to vocalize a lot of your frustrations and talk about it. I think we're better adapted at dealing with emotional stress and emotional problems, whereas they didn't know any better. Like they got the chapered, so they gave the chapered, right?
100%.
And like eventually, we got to break that cycle. There's a time to do it, and that's opportunity. But really, like are we doing all the right things to support each other? Right? Like, are we doing the right things to support our kids? Are we doing each other ability to make everybody be able to handle their situations that we currently deal with? Like, you got to remember, society's evolved.
100%.
We're dealing like now you got kids dealing with like 9, 10 years old. They're like getting bullied on their phones or internet. Like
100%.
Like that for me, that's the scariest thought. Like my kid was in kindergarten getting bullied by somebody, and my response was like, "Yo, man, punch that kid in the face. I'll buy you an ice cream."
Yeah.
And he went and told the teacher. And then when she told my wife, and I got in so much trouble, man. But like my frustration was that like he'd come home crying every week. And every week it'd be so like, this kid knocked the hat off my head, or he did this, or he did that. And it was one thing or another. And I was just like, and my kid, he's tall, he's big, he's bigger than the other kid. He's physically bigger and stronger. And my kid takes boxing and he does taekwondo. He's physically stronger, but he's soft. And I love that about him. And I think we all were soft at one point. I think I was soft as hell.
Yeah, 100%.
But life makes you eventually hard.
100%.
And I would rather him say soft, but unfortunately, you got to deal with some of the stuff.
That's true.
And it's tough.
Yeah, and then like I like to ask you guys this question too. What do you guys feel like, given the generation, what you see with the social media and everything? Do you feel like we're evolving to a point where we're becoming a more open society or even a community and having these talks and more, or do you think the parents or whoever are still deflecting these conversations to have with the kids? Like, what do you guys think about that?
I think it's improving for sure. But I think that's because we're westernized. We're in Canada. Because back home, I mean, it's the same thing, same repeating cycle.
Yeah.
Like even for me, right? Like I didn't have those serious conversations, till probably like recently, probably 2-3 years ago with my dad, talking about mental health and, with unfortunately like the stuff that, the family problems that I had, he's holding all that stuff. He took on that burden.
Yeah.
Right. So he never really explained it. He never talked about it because we were never taught to do that. Yeah. It was an embarrassment.
Yeah.
So now it's like for myself, I had to put him that pressure to explain him, like to just explain what's going on, right?
Yeah. That's fair.
But I think in society overall, like, there's still that norm of, it's not okay to talk about stuff at all. And you kind of, when eventually you get to that age, when you're like mid-20s and stuff, when you have an understanding about mental health and all that sort of is, or whatever issue and maybe a topic it is, that's when you have that position where you're able to force that on your parents to explain. So
no, that's also a good thing that I like about Paul is like he has those understandings. Yeah. That's the thing. Like he has that ability to look what he's done. Now he has a kid. He has to understand that I can take away certain good things that came from my upbringing, take those, and negate the negative things. Not like take those out. How can I implement those things into my life? But now I have a great understanding. Not only the trauma my parents went through and what I've been through. And now I can instill a certain thing and have conversation with your kids, right? Yeah. And that's what I do like about, that fact that you have that ability to, and you're doing so. So
I agree with you, but I'll put an asterisk on part of that too, is that I also now at this age, at where I'm at, finally understand what my parents were trying to say. And
that's true.
Like, even though their approach wouldn't be the approach that I would take, I actually look back and I get it, right? When I was young, and like I told you, man, like the 5-year-old kid going to the goaltender with my dad, getting him to tie a buck. Like I was his shadow, man. I was people would always be like, they'll be like, "Pa, tere shadow. He's always behind you." He's like, everyone always called my dad Pa. Yeah. And it was beautiful. But then there was an age that you get to like this teenage years where it's like everything's a no. No, you can't go out with your friends. No, you can't go to Cinema City 12 to watch the dollar movie. Like no to all these little things, and you're like, why does this guy not like me? What did I do? Right? Like what did I do to him? Why is he my worst enemy? And you don't comprehend it. And then you become like a teenager and late early adult. And instead of no, it's like a why.
That's true.
And then I got married, and you kind of get to that phase where once you're married, it's more of like what are your thoughts on it? It's more of like having a conversation, like what we're doing right now. It's talking about things. And that the relationship evolves, but along the way you're getting smacked and beaten, like told off, and like it sucks.
Definitely.
And you're told, like I remember there's one time like he's like next time you go, leave your key here, don't ever come back. Right?
And that's an issue too. Though I feel like to a certain extent with our parents. Now, as you said, we have the ability to change their ways. And one of the things I do want to focus on is the financial literacy that's put forth in us. What I mean by that is, I generally want to ask everybody, this is even whoever's watching and even us, how many times has our parents, have you heard, or even other people around us, don't worry about the bill to Niana ya Juaka, don't worry about this. And now you're like grown ass man at 2021. You're like, hey, what's the credit score? Now you're really realizing what a real world is out there. I gotta have credit history. Yeah, how do I do my taxes? Hey, I made 100K. Where my 20K go? Why are they coming from? We never have those talks. We never have those talks with our parents, and they'll never sit down and at least be like, hey guys, okay, we're gonna pan out this responsibility. Hey, this is utilities we pay for a house. This is what you gotta take care of. I feel like to a certain extent, we should do that more. A lot of our households still don't do that. They have that old school mentality. They're like, "Mera joaka, don't worry about it. We got this." I think it's such a bad way it's putting our kids and our generation community so far behind what the world is out there. Because we live in a bubble in that sense.
I think we're not making it any better. To tell you the truth, like I see people with their kids nowadays. Like we're not like the Goda community where there's no
18 you're out.
You're gonna like not even 18 you're out, but like even like we're not doing like, okay, you got to do some chores. Okay, you're gonna get $5 for that. Or you're gonna go do this. You're gonna get $5 for that. We don't do that. Like I to be honest with you, my kid's 5. He's a little young for it, but I do want to implement that with him. Have I done it yet? No. Does he still get like Slurpees and toys and clothes, whatever he wants? 100%. Is he spoiled? Does he not realize this, like the cost of $1? 100% he doesn't.
Yeah.
Whose fault is it? 100% it's mine. And do I need to fix it? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And so, and I think part of it is our parents always just thought, Jawak, yeah.
100%. Yeah.
He's going to have so much stress in his life.
Exactly.
He's going to get married. He's going to have that wife. There's going to be so much stress there as it is.
Yeah.
But they don't realize how far that's actually pushing us back
Yeah.
in growing up at a faster rate. Like, obviously, to a certain extent.
To a certain extent. Financial literacy is important.
It is. And
It
I think
is.
it's not spoken in our community enough, especially with our parents.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know, last time my dad sat me down and be like, you know what? Until now, I'm goddamn 29.
But you got to remember, they also came from a family where like they themselves weren't included in financial decisions until they're probably like in their 30s or 40s because their mom and dad handled it all.
100%. That's true.
Or the one person handled it for like 3 or 4 families.
Yep.
Like you'd be shocked at seeing how much that was prevalent.
100%.
Up into like the 80s and 90s. That was normal.
100%.
That's true.
That's true. And that's the thing though too. But at the end of the day, now we as a community, I mean, we as people in general, we can do better. But also, this also goes back on our community where we have everything at the tip of our fingers. We also got to take an onus upon us. The generation that right now, like in our era, like
100%.
me and Mocha, the onus is upon us. We want to change the way our parents, they came from having dimes and nickels in their hands and making them and turn them into thousands and thousands of dollars. So we got to understand, hey, they fought for this to make our lives better.
But guess what? If we don't do that, you make the millions. Guess who's going to spend the millions?
100%.
The kids.
Kids.
They ain't going to just spend it. They're going to
burn it.
They're not going to understand the value of money.
Exactly. They're not going to understand what the value of that money means.
But I think though is like also too, like how we were saying, like they also had quote unquote like a burden, right? Because there's so much pressure. I mean, they come from India, right? They had nothing in their pockets.
There's a pressure to be successful.
Successful,
100%.
but they didn't have the in that moment they didn't have the patience to teach. Because like what we were saying before, they were taught what they were taught, and they're just carrying it on.
Yeah.
So.
But we're also lucky as a community because we do I think we have a significant amount of people that have educational experience, have understanding, have literacy. Right, literacy is very prevalent in our community. It is. We push education more so than a lot of other communities, right?
100%.
So I think what the opportunity there is to really take that literacy and apply it across to people within our community that don't fundamentally have that knowledge or understanding, and push it to children. Push it, like when's the last time the Godar ran a financial literacy camp for kids? Or when's the last time they don't do that?
They don't do that.
But if they're not doing that, why don't we do it as a community? Like I've been talking about this for decades, man. Like you go to Mormons or you go to some of the other churches out there.
They have these discussions.
They do financial literacy for teenagers. They have conversations about life. They have like these kind of like life management kind of classes, and they have gyms where they like offer a drop-in basketball or drop-in volleyball.
100%.
It's not necessarily about athletics, but guess what happens? You bring in a bunch of teenagers or kids and
at a young age,
and they're doing basketball and volleyball. They start learning there's a support system. And then guess what? Timmy and Bobby, while they're talking, they're going to start talking about how much money they got saved up because they're going to go and do something
100%.
with it. They're going to go to a basketball camp. They're going to spend it on this. And so it creates these good behaviors. We don't get to fundamentally do that because we don't have those opportunities. Or I didn't have it. So we need to create a platform for them to have that.
Which is also why we don't have a strong brotherhood too.
Brotherhood. And I think we were talking about this before. I mean, I genuinely want anybody who's listening or to this, how many times have you been around a friend circle that you at right now? That there's always that one person who's pushing towards, hey, you want to start a business, let's do something together. And how many times do you have that one person pushing forward, let's build something?
Yeah. Let's do something.
Let's go party, let's get fucked up. This is what the talks you're having with the boys talk, quote unquote. Is that really what life is about? And
it's not, but it's you got to remember it's hard, and I speak to it because I've got a few more years than you guys on that, and around the brotherhoods. But it's tough, right? Because it's hard to start something with your friends because sometimes that burns friendships down, and then B, it's also hard to get out of that mindset of the good time because then once you do something, you create something together, it brings stress to that relationship, but guess what? Stress can what happens when you put something under pressure?
That's true.
either crumbles
yeah.
or it
Or they
becomes a
stand up.
diamond, man.
Yep,
Or it
100%.
becomes a diamond.
Yep.
So there is an amount of success that can come to it.
Yeah.
But what are you willing to risk for it, right?
That's
And a
true.
lot of brotherhoods, a lot of relationships are not built on strong foundations.
Mm.
So are
Yeah.
you really willing to risk that shaky foundation?
And that's the thing too. I feel like people tend to get scared that if they choose this path,
Yeah.
they're gonna lose those people across. But guess what? Though in life,
happens,
that
man.
is
It happens.
inevitable. If
One
you're
door
go-
closes,
another
door
one
opens,
opens,
and
100%.
down the road.
if you're on a course of action where you're doing better for yourself,
Yeah.
and the act of service, helping others as we should. I feel like for me, genuinely, the reason why we're on this earth
Yeah.
is to the gift that we're given of life.
Yeah.
What it means is giving back as much as we
100%.
can to the people around us. At the end of the day, that's what humanity is. It's
Oh, yeah.
not about you're Mexican, I'm brown, you're black, you're white. It's not about that.
World's
at
getting
all.
smaller and smaller.
Smaller,
Man. World's
man.
getting smaller and smaller. People
Exactly.
are traveling. People, there's like, man, I work in California. I work in LA right now.
Yeah.
And I'm on the precipice of leaving and moving there, right?
Yep.
And like I remember like 4 or 5 years ago, I used to have a conversation with a circle of friends. What if I moved to America? What if I moved to like England and like got a job there or something? They're like, what's wrong with you? Are you crazy?
Mhm.
What about your friend circle? What about your kids? Kids are not gonna have birthday parties to go to. Kids not gonna do this and stuff. Man, there's other birthday parties and like there's
100%.
other things that come up. And like, and if you build up and go somewhere, guess what? The people that really love you, doesn't matter if they're a friend or a family or acquaintance, they'll pick up the phone and call you.
100%.
They'll come take a flight and they'll come
Come
see
to
you.
you. 100%.
You
I
will
agree.
really, the value of friendships is really defined when you take yourself out of a situation and go far away from it,
Yeah.
Mm.
because you will really see who's there for you.
Hey, 100%. I'm
And,
telling
and
you.
that'll really
That
establish
circle
Yeah.
100%.
gets smaller
Yeah.
and
does.
smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you
It's
from
true.
life advice, man, if you actually have a ton of friends, then you're not as real as you could be to those people.
100%.
Because
True,
as the realer you get, the more people you filter out of your life.
Yep.
I think it's also another aspect to it is that people are afraid to be alone, lonely. They're afraid to lose, right? Even for myself in high school, I was, again, I was an introvert. I didn't have much friends. I came from a Catholic junior high and then went into a public school at McNally, right? I didn't know anybody. There was a bunch of brown guys. I just assumed I was like, I'm gonna fit right in. But then I was like, they were taking drugs and partying and all that shit. I was like, that's not me. But I was trying so hard to fit in because I felt alone.
Yeah.
Right. But then as I grew up, I was like, I can't even talk to these guys about like having deep conversations. It's always short
Okay.
conversations.
They make fun of you.
Right.
They think
Well,
it's a
when
joke.
you do, you end up being the butt of the joke.
100%.
Yeah.
Why is this guy always senti?
Yeah.
Senti
And- and
so-
you-
Why is you always ducky?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even right now, like,
Hey, man, I listen to sad songs when I work out sometimes.
Yeah.
You got
It's
to.
good shit.
It's good.
yeah, but even right now too, like, you eventually find out like, I'm okay to lose friends.
Yeah.
But that's because you have to build that type of platform for your own self
Yeah.
to know like what type of people you want to allow into your circle.
Hey man, I will talk from life experience. I spent a good chunk of my life being around a ton of guys and
Yeah.
always having friends and
Yeah.
always being that one person that always knew somebody. So I still know a ton
And
of
if you
people.
need something, they
But
can
my
hit you up. Yeah.
closest circle has withered away, and I spend a lot of time on my own. But guess what? It helped me expose my own flaws. It helped me figure out my own issues,
Yeah,
and
100%.
I think it made me a better person.
True.
I've now like shining a light inwards isn't easy when you got 15, 20 dudes around you.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
And some of them are shining bad lights on you. Some of them are shining good lights on you.
100%.
And like, people like they give the fukmar up your thing. And you're like, oh, I'm
Pumping
such
you
a
up.
great.
Yeah.
But then behind your back, they're not fuking you down, man.
100%.
But it gives you an opportunity when you are abundantly alone for a long period of time.
Yep.
You have to get uncomfortable with yourself.
100%.
And you peel back those layers of those onions
Hey.
and you realize, holy shit,
Mhm.
my shit does stink because
It does.
I'm not as good as I think I am.
Mm.
And there is flaws and there is things that you can work on.
Work
There's
on,
things that you
100%.
can make better about yourself.
True.
And guess what? When you have those big circles and all those people, you don't get that opportunity, man.
You don't.
You don't.
And that's the thing though too. It kind of like goes into having people to look up into in a community. We had like people back in the days, like warriors, like Milk was referring to kind of Milka saying somebody he looked up to, that inspired to be someone like that. But if you look at our community now, like you can't say outright can you think of someone be like, I look up to that person right off the top of your head in our community?
Like in a person that I know personally.
No, not personally. If you just think about it in
Like
general. Like people have to
No,
think.
not
It's,
so much. No, like there's people that you
no,
think
100%.
about.
There is. No,
Yeah,
100%. I
yeah,
feel like, but we lack that.
yeah.
We lack that due to that simple fact that we don't push ourselves enough in a friend circle where we almost are like content. We're content with that same BS life that we live, like having fun, enjoy. That's that. Like having no kind of like reservation to take a step back. What I'm doing maybe is not what I want for my life, or even look around the people you hang around with. Like, you know, as you said, what am I doing right now? Take a step back in life. I encourage everybody, no matter what position they're in life, take a step back in life. Really look at life for what it is. Am I really where I am? And or am I even, you know, far gone like where I thought I would be? If you are, great. Even if you're not, I think it's okay to not be at a position that you thought. Take a step back, understand, okay, how do I accomplish this? Do I gotta get rid of this certain crew, or do I gotta get rid of this certain habit, or whatever it may be? Act on it. Don't wait a week, 2 months, 3 months. Guess what? You're gonna be the same thing.
But you know what it really is? It's not necessarily having to have a role model. What we lack in our community is mentorship. That's what we seem to lack.
100%.
Because it's great if you got a story about somebody, because like you can relate to that. Hey man, I looked up to Maharaj Ranjit Singh.
Yeah.
And those stories are phenomenal to read about. But can I apply it to my life?
Like,
No, not as much.
Not
but
anymore,
but having a mentor, and I've been very fortunate in my professional career. I've been very fortunate. I've achieved a lot, and I've achieved a lot because I've constantly had mentors at different levels. Some of them were Punjabi, some of them weren't. And the beauty of it was, I will say that you will be the best version of yourself and achieve the most as the most achieved person in your inner circle.
100%.
That's true.
Hey, that's facts.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the peak guy that you know, that's the level you're gonna get to.
Yep. Yeah, and then in a way, I'm lucky in my friend circle with that one. Like my friend circle have like 3 best friends I have. You know, just like I don't have that many.
What's wrong with that, man?
And
You need
I love that.
4 dudes to carry your casket. That's
100%.
4 dudes.
Yeah, and
You
they
don't
all
need 20,
inspire
30
me.
guys.
They all inspire me to do better. One of my close friends in San Fran, working for Amazon, hardest working person I know.
Yeah.
He's into Muay Thai as well, like, you know, being active, doing out there. And other friend, like a pharmacist, they're always striving to do something better for themselves and build something for themselves, you know? And when you have that environment, it pushes you. But like, damn, I'm just sitting on my ass, not doing anything. I ain't working out. I ain't focused on my career. No, nothing. When you have that environment you created, to a certain extent, it pushes you as well. And then, you know, as you spoke to it.
You know what? Like, and I'll be honest, like if you go back to fitness and stuff and Muay Thai and like and working out and stuff, all those things are things, they're disciplines, right?
100%.
And all it teaches me mentally and physically, and like you know, it releases endorphins, makes me feel good, but it's also built structure in my life. So I've become so structured, it's also helped me understand that I can do tough things that I don't like doing over and over and over again, and I can get better at it. And that's life.
100%. And you know, I heard a really good quote. I shared it with Mook on IG. It was by Mike Tyson. He said, do what you hate to do, but do it like you love it.
Yeah.
And if you take what that actually means and you apply to your day-to-day life, anything you're doing in life, I'm telling you, your outcome in life, whatever you do, is going to be far greater than what you think you could have accomplished. I don't care what nobody says. You put your mind to it, you have that mentality. I'm telling you, you can literally accomplish anything. People say, oh, I can't do this. Have you tried? I tried. No, you didn't try.
You see me grinning like this? I had posted on my story yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah,
no way.
Same quote, man. Yo, man, vibe.
See, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, man.
Like, for example, like you could have never thought, like, I could get in a fight and do this. You tried, you trained.
Yeah.
You trained and took your ass. That's discipline.
Yeah. But, you know, I'll tell you this, though. Like, the more I've, like, and I'll tell you, like, you get into situations in your personal and your professional life where you're stressed out, and that stress leads to aggression or anger. I've found the more I've gotten better, like at this discipline, the more discipline, my anger doesn't exist. Like,
100%.
I am so much more calm, so much more easy. Like the more, like your body is a tool, right? So the more often you put it in these fight or flight situations, the more you become accommodated to reacting appropriately.
100%.
And the appropriate reaction is to be calm and cool and have a conversation. Because guess what? Getting angry or getting aggressive, that doesn't win anything. There's no awards for being the craziest, strongest guy. Guess what? The guy that walks away, the cool, polite dude, that's the one that people are like, oh man, that guy's got it straight.
Yo, 100%.
But it stems, but above all, I think it stems from, like what you're saying, your circle of friends. If your circle of friends are disciplined, they're doing shit, you're like, yo, these guys are doing everything. I gotta make sure I'm on point. And if I need advice, if I need something from my boys, right? Like being like, yo, I need advice on this, I can do that. Perfect example, like got Omid, right? He owns the studio, right? Kuram, I look up to him like a big bro because he's a basketball trainer. He's in the sports industry. I'm within the same industry as well. If I have some shit going on, relationship, anything in life, I can go to him and he'll be honest and true to me.
Real talk,
right?
Real talk.
And the thing is that we don't have that shit. Even accountability. If my friend, if Amir does something stupid, I'll be like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, what are you doing?"
Getting a lot of so I don't know where it's coming
Okay.
Was it there before or just now?
Yeah, it's just now or?
Well, it's been like periodically happening, and then
Is it a fan?
Is the fan?
no, it's it's an actual like popping sound every once in a while.
Popping?
But I don't know where it's coming from.
Is it your good days?
Looks like it's
knees are clicking. They're popping.
There's also a thunderstorm going on outside.
Oh,
So I'm getting a feed, but it's that was clicked in, or that clicked in, so that probably.
Probably that's the reason.
Stop messing with it, man.
I
No,
know.
stop touching it.
Fuck. Fuck. Sorry.
I had something I was going to say.
Yeah, what were we talking
Like,
about?
it's such a good thing to say.
Do
We're talking about
we-
circle of friends.
Oh yeah.
Do we?
Yeah.
Probably just wait. Good.
Okay.
Continue.
Circle of friends. Circle of friends.
Yeah, so kind of going back to the circle friends, but yeah, like if somebody in my friend circle, right, which we don't have in our community, is accountability. If Amber's doing something stupid, right, and it's hurting himself, it's affecting his self-development, his own growth, I'll be like, what the fuck are you doing, dude?
And so I get what you're saying there, and I'd be like, me, I'm our boys. But my first thing, like especially from the whole brother thing, is if he's out there and doing something stupid and it's public facing, and somebody like wants to throw it at him, I'm gonna throw down with him and beat that guy up. But when we get home, I'm gonna be like, "What did you do that for?"
Yeah,
And he's gonna
what's
come
wrong
and
with you?
right?
Yep.
Like because there's outward facing and inward facing. And I'll tell you this, man, my life experience, man, dude. I used to roll with a group of guys where like there would always be like we'd go out.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like
something
it
happened,
was
I'm
something.
there.
So something would always happen,
Yeah.
and like for some reason it would always be like, oh, like I would be like, I don't know, maybe because I did the training or whatever. But for some reason,
Get in there.
I would always get pulled in.
Yeah.
But I would always like, oh, you're looking at my bro like that, or you're gonna say something to my boy like that,
Yeah.
and then I'd always have the back. So I was always the first one in, and I'd be the first one to throw a punch.
Yeah.
But like, it's not always the smartest thing because now I look back and I'm not friends with some of these guys anymore. And guess what? I don't have that reputation for going around and getting into fights anymore.
Yeah.
And like it wasn't even like, so I wasn't even getting into the problems because of my own issues.
Yeah.
I was getting into the problems for other people's
Other
issues.
Yeah,
issues,
100%.
Somebody did something in ball hockey to somebody, or somebody said something to somebody at some reception.
100%.
And like I was just in it because I just wanted to be the bro.
The bro.
100%.
And so it's finding that fine line between being the brother, which you should. And don't get me wrong, man. When you're out there in public facing and things go down, you got to be there for your
I'm
boys.
there.
You have to be.
Yeah.
And even now, man, dude, if
Yeah.
I saw somebody that I don't talk to anymore and don't even like anymore, I'd throw down for that same person.
100%.
Because at one point or another, we all aligned.
But is it really worth it though? Like if you have a type of boys, like this is what I also say is like if they don't have the emotional control, right, if their first response is to start a fight, is it the type of person you want to have in your life?
If you filter them out slowly,
Yeah.
you filter them
You
out.
do.
But not a lot of people do that in our
You
community.
have to, man. You
They
gotta.
feel that, like again, I was saying, like people are feeling afraid because they
The
don't want to be
judgment.
alone.
The judgment too.
Dude, man, you know
They're
what?
willing to risk
I'll tell you
this.
this right now. Being alone is some of the most beautiful thing you can do, man.
Exactly.
It is. There's
yeah.
a beauty to being alone. You will actually, guess what? You're not going to be alone because if you actually have good values and good ethics and you're a good person and you stand for something, people are naturally drawn to that.
100%.
You'll eventually, even if you don't build a new circle, you'll build new people and you'll have, and to be honest with you, sometimes I look at my life now, maybe not having a tight circle is a good thing. Maybe having, one or two guys that I know that are like my tight boys. And that if we don't talk for 2 months, ain't no big deal. but we pick back up like we were hanging out like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
That's what it's supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be that you're hanging out with 20 guys every week, doing the same stupid things, going to the same bars, getting to the same problems, having the same conversations over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Eventually, like it gets old.
It does, man. And that's what I feel like we as people got to understand. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are in the same position that you spoke of. They got to have that ability to stray away from that. Have that self-discipline. Stop having the expectation where like you're not going to be accepted. Are you accepted by what you stand for? Yourself, the self-worth that you have. Do you like who you are? You look at yourself in the mirror. Yeah, I can stand out. Like I can walk outside proud of what I've accomplished. It's not just more so about who you are, who you surround yourself with. And we discussed this earlier in a sense where you feel like there's something going wrong in your friend circle, whatever. Detach yourself from it. No one's pointing a gun. Hey, you got to stay here.
I get what you're saying. Easier said than done. I'm
You
going
think
to
so?
a devil's advocate on this,
You
man.
really think so?
Yeah, because I've been through there, man. People will choose to go with the crowd even if they know that the crowd is wrong.
Really?
They will, especially in our community.
That's different. Like I
Because
never had that
you
mindset.
want to know why?
I try to stay away
Why
from
do you
it.
want to be out with all the boys? Why do you want to be not invited to the NFL parties and the
Yeah,
get-togethers?
all
Why do
these
you not want to
parties,
be going to
that's
the
true.
ball hockey events?
Yeah.
Why do you want to be with the one guy that you're gonna go out with, or be that one guy that you're out and you're getting whispered and talked about and having being discussed? You don't want to be that guy.
That's true though. I mean, that's where we differ though. I feel like
Most people don't.
I did see that I was different. I was completely opposite. For me, I'm like, if somebody invites me or not, I could not care less. I will go to the gym. I will play ball for 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
I'm at peace with myself.
Yeah.
Nobody's bothering me. They're
Yeah.
like, come turn up.
But nobody.
I'm good.
Most people don't
Don't
want
wanna-
that.
that's the
average
issue.
Punjabi guy
They don't want.
wants to be a part of the crew.
Why do you want to sit at a table
They
and get
want,
bar
they want
service,
so and
bottle
so
service?
to like him. They want like that ball hockey guru to pick them on their team
Yeah.
because he's so great, and like they like we've got a culture of wanting to be accepted and liked,
Fit in. Yeah.
and it's tough. It's tough for people to not be liked.
Do you think because it provides them, they think in society provides them a status? But like,
Probably.
do you think so?
100%.
You think that's where it
100%.
drives
Yeah.
from?
Yeah.
That ego?
We've disassociated, and this is the thing that we've made this mistake. We associate liking with respect.
Respect. Uh-huh.
And whereas we've forgotten in our culture, respect is supposed to be earned,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's supposed to be built on merit,
100%.
not necessarily athletic merit, not
100%.
necessarily merit in other things, but like merit in itself,
100%.
coming from stature or criteria, or coming from seva, from
100%.
ethical work.
Yeah, and I think that's like kind of like it's like a journey you gotta walk by yourself. Like
100%, man.
there's a journey that's paved, and there's the journey that you gotta pave for yourself, and that's the one everybody's scared to take. But for me, what I have learned for myself, like through this life that I have, persevered a lot in life, but understanding that I'm okay with my own skin, and I feel like I gotta be a mentor for the youngins that are behind me, that are younger than me. You know, the
Dude, I'm
pride.
proud of you, man.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you because you're not even 30 and you're there.
Yeah, because like I
Yeah,
take pride.
It took me way longer. It took me to my late 30s
Yeah,
to get to where you are.
no,
To
100%.
to be happy in my own skin, to be okay to be alone.
Yeah. And a lot of people question me. They're like,
big time.
Yeah. But it's also like how we were saying, like it is a different path, right? Like
Yeah.
you were open, you were extrovert, you were out there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Amber and I were quite similar. We're introvert.
Yeah.
We started from being alone, and we were okay with being alone. And whoever came in and out of our lives,
Yeah.
we didn't give a shit.
Yeah. See, I was never alone.
Right?
Like I grew up in this house.
You always
my,
had
my
that-
dad,
that
my
environment
dad brought
around
like
you.
50, 60 people from India, man. So our house was constantly had somebody new there. There's always a cousin, there's an auntie and uncle, there's always somebody staying with us. There's always somebody.
yeah.
And then when it wasn't family, then it was all the boys. Then having 8, 9 guys over all the time. Somebody. I'm always like, if you ever come over to my house, you'll see like my house is designed open concept, big house,
Mhm.
and it's meant to host. Like
Yeah.
I do the 50, 60 person Christmas parties with the 2 turkeys and like the whole bunch of the fixings and everything. And I've always had this belief that you break bread with people and there's a bond that gets built,
Mhm.
the unbreakable bond.
Yeah.
True.
You assume that.
100%. And that's the thing though, too. I feel like people shy away from the responsibility. Like I love the responsibility of cousins coming up to me. They're like, I want to be, like Amir, like he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. Like it's something, it makes me like, it's heartwarming to see that if I can show them a different light,
Yeah.
that they want to create their own light like that, you know. So for me, it's like shining light on the darkness. People will follow that path where, at least if you feel like you're going down a righteous path, I think genuinely people around you will see that, and it will speak volume to it. Because I'm not saying seek validations, but people see you. Like, imagine if like your kid come up and be like, man, you know, I like him. Like, I like how he does this, he does that. Like, I want to
100%.
be like him. You know, we should take
He's
pride
just gonna
in
like
it.
you because you play basketball.
Yeah.
In the park, man.
He's like, I like him.
He's gonna love
He's
that.
good at ball. But I think people shouldn't shy away from it. I never shied away from it just because I felt like that was just something that that's one of my obligations. Or even like, I never cared for going out and drinking, missing out. I had never had that urge to, let's get fucked up, let's do party, I'm trying to fit in. Never had it. I'm like, you want to come? They're like, I'm good. I don't really need to. I'm good. Right?
That's good though.
Yeah,
There's
so
a
like
beauty to that.
Yeah, I
man,
built that
right?
mindset where now the younger kids, they come to me like, hey, yo, Amber, let's go play ball. Can you teach me this? Can you teach me that? Now, if I can show them a different side of the world, yeah, I'll gladly take the
Yeah.
responsibility. I think people should more and more understand that. Not saying that I'm perfect by no means.
No.
I'm a man of many flaws.
It's underrated
No,
though. It's underrated.
And just have an understanding that like you will make mistakes.
100%.
I'm
You
100%
will.
sure that you do some wrong.
100
You might
I
break
have
some
done
girl's
wrong.
heart.
100%.
You'll do something that's not going to be right. 100% I get that.
Yeah.
But you're supposed to, like, this whole fundamental belief of all the things in our faith and our culture, the whole concept, my dad used to say this all the time. You're never going to do all the right things.
Nope.
But the way you want to leave it is if you've done more good than harm to this
Mhm.
world.
100%.
That's the way you're supposed to. When you die, there's going to be an accounting of all the things you've done. And which way do you want those scales to tip?
100%. I agree.
Right? And so you only have a finite amount of time in this life on this earth.
Yeah.
So it's easy to do wrong things.
Yep.
Doing the right things is always a little bit harder.
100%.
It takes a lot more work. It takes more patience. And so putting more onus on this as we get older is important.
Yep.
And you'll trust me. You'll see it. And I get this, man. Like, we talk about this in young brown guys and young dudes doing all the wrong things. I have a firm belief, and maybe this is a hopeful person in me, that a lot of these apne Sikh Punjabi munde, like, eventually we find the path, man. We have to. I think I did.
Mhm.
And I believe, like, and I think you guys have. And like, I think it happens, man.
It
And
does
if
happen.
it doesn't,
It's a shame.
It's a
man.
shame,
It's a shame.
but it's also a part of our responsibility to help those
help
people.
100%.
100%.
Yep. No, I like, that's what I'm saying. I always talk to Mocha. I'm like, man, like, anytime anybody wants to have a deep conversation about anything, I'm there for it.
I
They
love
can
deep
teach me.
conversations.
Hey, bro, I'm like, they can teach me so much. I never stray away from it because I don't feel like there's anybody out there younger than me, older than me, less educated, whatever it may be. I don't feel like you can never not learn.
Yeah.
You can never, there's not any instant you feel like there's nothing that I can get out of Mocha, right? There's nothing that I can get out of Paul, whatever it may be, your status or whatever, it has no, bearing on that, the learning aspect of it. Obviously, you got to have some credential in speaking to certain thing. You can't be like, hey, like, you should do this in real estate. Have you done it yourself? No, but I'm like, you got to have some
Let me give you
credibility.
advice on stuff that I haven't done.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there has to be some understanding that, you have credibility to a certain extent. It can't be just speaking out of your ass. So, so I think just kind of understanding that it goes a long way. It puts everything together in our community where we got to stray away from these things that are, kind of killing our community in a sense where, one, we don't take the onus upon ourselves to a certain extent. I don't want to, put anybody out there, be like, oh, you don't do this. I don't do it fully either. I got to take initiative where, okay, I should have these talks and promote it more or whatever it may be. Because at the end of the day, that's what people see. They're like, okay, that's interesting. I want to learn more about it. When you don't have these conversations at all, you're never going to have them. And it's going to...
Yeah, it's important to have these conversations, man. And
Yeah.
and to be honest, I think of what we're doing here and have this podcast, this whole conversation,
Yeah.
it's if it's anything, it'll open people's minds to be able to talk more, even if they can't talk to other people, maybe just with their own family or their own
100%.
If it's not with their own friends, hopefully it's somebody, right?
No, exactly.
And it just makes it more comfortable to do that. And it's easier to say, hey, guess what? I saw this on this podcast. So these guys said this. This is what I think about it.
Yeah.
And that's a conversation starter. And that's
Exactly.
what this is supposed to be all about.
Yeah. And I agree. I mean, I think this makes it easier too. Even if some people are struggling out there, just know that you're not the only one. It's okay to reach, as I said from last time, reach out to anybody that you feel trust, or at least have that ability to.
Yeah.
Now, like we spoke about like child trauma and stuff, you like some people might resonate with it. Be like, you know what, they're right. Like now I do have the courage to be like, you know what, it's okay to talk to my parents. They're not gonna kill me for having a conversation that's been bothering you. They don't see you as some sort of like, oh, if you have this talk, we're not going to talk for like, no, they genuinely care for you.
Yeah.
They just have a hard time understanding the issues that we face in this society compared to what they face, right? So it's okay to go up and talk, have these conversations. I feel like it'll be a way easier, I shouldn't easier, but it opens up that dialogue to have conversation with their parents where it makes it easier to stem away from the trauma of getting hit or like some other things when you grew up.
Man,
like,
I remember growing up, man, the toughest conversation. You ever remember you'd be like at the auntie uncle's house and you'd be like, Daddy, main the sleepover karna.
Hell
and
no.
You're like,
If you round the corner,
karna. And you'd be like, ha, sleepover karna. And they'd take you back to that corner. Prepared, man. And then you were like, never going to have a conversation about sleepovers ever again.
100%. And to a certain extent, that child trauma, like, thing sticks with a lot of our, younger people as well, where, there's always the unspoken things in our community.
No.
For example, like we talked earlier, like, when it comes to the physical aspect, getting abused or even like that sexual, like
inappropriate touching, man.
Hey, I'm telling you, there's always that
creepy uncle
sitting in the corner.
Uncle.
Hey,
always a creepy
saying
uncle,
weird shit to you. And
he usually drives a Ford Mustang. It's super creepy.
But thing is, those things are like so sensitive. Like we don't even talk about that. Like, no, we can't talk about that stuff. Like,
but
it's shut down. It exists.
But we knew about it. Like we always knew there was that one creepy uncle. Like when you were growing up, you
100%.
always knew.
There's always that one creepy person that's doing that appropriate thing, but nobody called them out on it.
Nobody called them out on it. But like that's just like that's our culture. Like and I don't want to say that we do need to change that.
Yeah.
Because it's not okay.
Yeah.
And we need to make it more like, I remember growing up as a kid, the parents would never be like, oh, like yell and scream if the creepy uncle's talking to you. But like now, I'd tell my son, if I'm dealing with my situation, I'd be like, dude, man, yell and scream if the creepy uncle comes near you.
Yeah.
And I'll give the creepy uncle a bear. Because like 100%, that's not okay.
No, it's not, man. And
but
then,
like, we had a culture of just brushing things under the
we
rug.
really are.
Man, like, and it's silly. It's so silly because we do it at the detriment of our own kids. Or not even our own kids.
Like
our own
health.
kids, our own mental health,
100%.
our own like everything. Like we don't comprehend the level of damage it can cause.
100%. Yeah. So, but these are talks. I feel like they are coming out more. Like, for example, Car Movement. Also, shout out to Car Movement. I love their page. They talk about these topics a lot.
Oh, really?
Where these, I don't know if you guys ever, they talk about these.
Yeah.
You might have.
My wife follows it. My wife watches it.
Like, some of the stories I see
where
like women are getting abused, that, it breaks my heart. Because like my mom is like my angel, man. Like I see her something that she made me the person I am today.
Yeah.
And I see these stories, man, it's sad.
It is. And to be honest with you, like we always think about them and we always think it's in the past. It was a thing that happened in the 70s,
man.
80s. And I remember growing up, man, being around like my grandparents and seeing some of that stuff and being around my dad and my mom. And my dad was a typical dissy male who like it was his show and there was nobody else's. And like there would be like, there'd be the vocal saying like putting my mom down, and there'd be the occasional physical too. And like and being a kid and being in that environment, you don't want to see that, especially if somebody that like at some point in your life, at most points in your life, you see them as your hero.
100%.
Right. So I think we struggle with that. And like now to see that, like that is still prevalent, it's still going on. And like, it's sad because I think we would think as a society, we'd be at a point to say, okay, enough is enough. Like if conversations can't handle the situation, then see an exit.
100%.
Right?
I agree. I mean, that's what I feel like, this is a beautiful thing what we're doing here. I truly do believe so. So, having this conversation and to everybody out there, if you're ever going through stuff, just know there's people around you.
There's always people around, man.
Talk. Don't ever, even if it's the slightest thing that you think it bothers you, don't forego it for you causing your mental health. Whatever, maybe
and like a lot of people are always scared to like reach out. People are scared to go to therapy. Man, I'll tell you right now, like people always look. They'll be like, "Oh man, that person's got it. He's so straight with it and so sharp." The strongest, sharpest people go to therapy. They get help. Everybody gets help. Man, I've been there. I've done therapy, and doesn't matter what it's for, but it always will help you. Like it can be like, childhood trauma. It can be, personal relationship issues. It can be professional issues.
100%.
Man, people deal with like so much stress in their professional life.
100%.
If you don't know how to deal with it, you don't know how to package it and
know.
handle it and how to get it out.
So-
And like, there's only so much Muay Thai and gym you can do.
Yeah.
There ain't enough
There's only
physical
so-
workouts.
It's
man.
only 2-3 hours,
Yeah.
4 or 5. So
Yeah.
hey, there's 24-hour
So-
days. So, but
Use the tools that are available to
100%.
you.
That's
Use the
what I
tools.
say. Yeah, and then this is what this is about. I want everybody to feel comfortable to, come in our YouTube comments, speak their mind,
Right.
have dialogue where come with some sort of, at least opinionated, objective opinions where you're not like, okay, we think this is something that could be narrated in this sense, and have these conversations, because we want everybody to come along and
100%.
give us an idea of like, oh, this is not the right way it's done, or like, oh, maybe you guys should discuss this in this manner. I think people would like, we want that, we want to
Yeah,
build
man.
that. So,
We're open to constructive criticism, man.
that's what we're here
Definitely.
for, and that's what we want. Yeah, you just wanna make
Thanks
something out
for
of this.
watching episode 2
Yep.
of the Modern Brown Men podcast.
See ya.
We'll see you out.